it's important to start fostering critical thinking and ethical awareness.
When do we move from just literate to being fluent? AI literacy is not a standalone. It's not something that just magically appears. It lands on so many other subjects. Let's take a step back. Let's have a look at how whatever tool we are using, including AI, is truly going to enable us as an organization.
Welcome to the AI in IB Schools podcast, Strategic Leadership Conversations for the Tech Revolution. I'm Rachel Bodley, and alongside my co-host, Rita Bateson, who is a former IB curriculum manager and a founding head of an IB Continuum school in Dublin. We're excited to have you join us as we chat with school leaders from around the IB world, uncovering their best practices, innovative approaches, and real-life stories of AI integration. In this episode, we are going to sit down today with Sandra T'Chagua, who is leading AI implementation at Jumeirah Baccalaureate School, JBS, which is a full continuum school in the UAE. And we're really going to talk about how AI and data are reshaping K-12 education, not just at JBS, but also in the UAE, and talk a little bit about AI literacy and AI literacy from the lens of building school-wide tech strategies. But Sandra is also going to share some practical insights on ethical innovation, which both her and I are very passionate about, a little bit about assessment and potentially the real work that's happening in schools behind digital transformation. So Sandra, it's so good to see you. It's great to have you on the podcast today. Thank you for being here. Could you please start by just telling a little bit about yourself, give us an introduction of who you are and your background?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited to be part of this podcast. My background. So I'm a teacher. Actually, I'm a learner. I'm a learner at heart who then became an educator. I love to learn, and I am on this journey learning with my students, and now learning alongside everyone else who is trying to make sense of what AI is and the impact this is going to have on education. So trained as a computer science teacher, so that's where my heart lies. Passionate about technology, happiest where there's that intersection between technology and education. So I'm always going to be found there. So in every school I've worked in, I've always ended up at that intersection where it's not just about tech and teaching about tech and teaching with tech, but also just working with schools to see how tech can actually be integrated to transform education. So I always manage to find myself there. So that's what I'm really passionate about.
I love that. And tell us a little bit now what you're doing specifically at Jumeirah Baccalaureate School. I know that you're sort of leading AI. Tell us what that looks like. Maybe it's helpful to know a bit about the school background. I know that you're full continuum school. Tell us about the size of the school, and then maybe the leadership structure. Who else is involved in these sort of top-down conversations around AI?
Okay, so you're right. So JBS is a full continuum school, and we are on a journey, quite early on our journey. So we are not quite there yet. So currently working on, just completed our strategy, now working on how we're going to implement that. But the school has taken on a very, I want to say unique approach, but I think this is an approach that all schools ought to take, where the leadership of this is not linear. We have a project team. So because we have a project team, we've got representation from across the different parts of the school. So we've got, representation from our PYP, from our DP and MYP. We've got representation from tech. So it's bringing all these voices together as we shape the policy. So that has been really interesting, because you then get to, because sometimes something that might work for one part of the school might not necessarily work for the other. And especially when you're trying, because an AI policy is something that it's not easy to come up with something that's going to fit everybody. And that's the biggest challenge. So just having all those voices around the table from the get-go really did help. So I'm enjoying it. It's a structure I've not worked with before, but I'm enjoying having, all those different voices around. We work very closely with the leadership team, reporting directly to the school principal. So they're very much involved as well. But it is a project, and we are a project team. So we get to, and because also we are a project team, we get to borrow from or pull from different teams or different parts of the team as and when we need to. So we're just about to start work with our teaching and learning leadership team, because we now want to plan for our PDs. And we're like, hey guys, this is your domain. Come and join us. How do we implement this going forward?
Yeah. And so you are leading this project team. And
Yes.
I know that your role has evolved and you've got different, what exactly is your role title at the moment then for leading this?
So, yeah, you tell me. So actually, I work with data. I'm the data manager. I teach a bit of the computer science. So I've been also working on data systems, because that's the reason why I initially joined JBS. We had a conversation around their need for better data literacy. They wanted to develop systems that allowed, I suppose, easier access to data. They wanted teachers to be trained on Fluency. They wanted to see real impact from all this data. And I set about doing that. So initially when I came in, that was the role. But because I had been involved with other tech projects, ed tech projects, like I said, this has followed me all my life. Like everywhere I've been.
It won't leave you alone. Now AI is here to take over your life, which it has.
Like, and it's literally taken over my life.
You're not actually the first person who's been a data lead who then ends up becoming sort of leading AI too. And I think that's a role that's going to start evolving in a lot of schools. And just a couple quick practical things for anyone listening. How many people are in this project team, and how often are you meeting? And when, like, is it after school? Have you carved space during the day, which would be amazing?
Exactly. So we have five core members in the team, and we've met once every week. We also work, and I forgot to say, so how this whole thing evolved. Actually, it started off with our PDs. So we had our professional learning groups, and I was leading the AI professional learning group. So we also have a team of our digital leads, or our teachers that were part of the professional learning community. So that PLC actually ran the initial AI experimentation, if we can call it that. So we looked at tools, we played a little bit with the tools, we selected tools that we might want to experiment with our students. So that PLC still exists and is actually a support to the tech steering committee. So the tech steering committee has emerged as the team that's leading this project, but we do have the support of our PLC still. And the PLC group is good, 30 odd teachers across primary and secondary school. The PLC doesn't meet as often as we'd like it to, because that needs to fall within the PD structure. But they have been instrumental to this. So all the ideas that we sort of trickled into, the formulation of our strategic plan, say, quite a lot of those actually originated from the PLC group. So conversations we were having, demands they were making, because they were like, listen, we need to get on with this. We are now behind, get cracking with this. So a lot of those demands and a lot of those conversations actually started within our PLC group, and this is now emerged into our strategic plan, and of course led by this strategic team. So the tech steering committee. Now we were meeting once every week. We are hoping to because next year is going to be really make or break for us, because this is when we are going to do like the full-on implementation. So we would need to meet more often, and protected time and all that. So we're hoping that will happen for us. Yeah.
And maybe what we can do too is we'll pause this here, but let's come back to that full-on implementation of what that looks like. But before we talk about that and what you're thinking, because I think it'll be really nice to share with other schools, let's kind of go back to your take on AI literacy, because I think we share a very similar approach and very similar values around AI literacy. Can you talk to me about how you feel it goes beyond simple tools, and then how it's important to start fostering critical thinking and ethical awareness? Let's have that conversation first, and we'll come back to that full implementation in the school, because I think this is important to understand before we talk about the implementation. Yeah.
Absolutely. And and I don't know if the goal or our aim should be literacy. I often have that literacy versus fluency debate. When do we move from being just literate to being fluent? And I think that's when the discussion around responsible use and ethics, and actually even the decision you make at when we talk about intentional use of the tool, we are now moving out of the realms of just being literate. We are now moving into being fluent. And I think that needs to be the end game. I mean, AI is so pervasive. We have to go beyond just being literate. We need to be able to say, do you know what? This is intentional. I know why I'm using this tool. I know how I'm going to use this tool. And I know what I'm expecting from the tool. But we can't make those decisions if we just stop at being literate. So I'm not really sure how that's going to look like. but that's what the OECD was implying, right? When they were talking about, you have your skills and you have your knowledge, and then they threw in the attitude, right? And it's the attitude that's going to shape that. And I think that's what's going to move us from literacy to fluency. So maybe we should start talking about what AI fluency looks like.
Yeah, I think a lot of the work that Rita and I are doing is going even beyond just the attitudes and looking at what we value, and what do we value as human beings, and how do we figure out what we value as human beings, and how do we make sure we explicitly teach that to kids? And I think us teachers at IB schools, we know and we're used to that, but maybe we need to do it more now than ever, right? Maybe we need to be really careful about explicitly teaching what it means to be human, because tech is not just the intentional use of a tool, but also the unintentional use of a tool. Because now I can't even Google like I wanted to anymore. Now I have to use AI when I go to Google something, right? And so what, how is that kind of reshaping and changing our lives? So that's really interesting. Did you want to add anything else to that bit?
No. I think I said that already. Conversations need to be around, if we are talking about fluency, which is exactly what you were saying, what does that look like? It's beyond being intentional. You need to know the impact of what you're doing, why you're doing it. It's kind of like the decisions we make need to be, informed by that, just beyond the technical knowledge of the tool, but the actual impact the tools have as well.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. And it leads me to what we're talking about AI literacy, and that leads me to the UAE specifically. So maybe I could give a little bit of context, but I'm sure your context would be better about the UAE's approach to AI literacy, and they're joining in this AI race, as I like to call it. So maybe you can speak to that, and then maybe we can talk about what you think about that and how that's going to impact schools and education.
Okay, but I actually don't think that the UAE's announcement was the first time they talked about this. They've been very intentional about this from the beginning. I remember reading their strategy on artificial intelligence 2031. I think this document was produced 2 years ago. Or is it even 3 years ago? And they created a whole ministry. They have a whole ministry of artificial intelligence, that is staffed by a minister of artificial intelligence. So that just goes to show how, again, intentional they are about this. And the UAE is very good at, once they make a decision and it becomes a national priority, they will put everything in it. So I don't think I was surprised, because, like I said, I had read the documentation the documents that were released by the ministry. We were following. So the UAE government obviously launched their strategy for artificial intelligence a few years ago. So it was no surprise when they announced the mandate that all schools will now teach AI. If you actually read the documents and you followed the timeline, it was no surprise at all. I know that for a lot of people that are maybe outside of the UAE, you might think that was in response to other countries having done the same, but actually no. I think that was it was very strategic. It was very intentional. We had just had the Dubai AI Week as well, where again, whenever they have events like this, the schools are at the center. They want the schools involved. They invited schools in. They had sessions for students. So it's something that they've always done. So this was no surprise at all. So
amazing. Yeah. It's great that it's been so well thought through. And so it sounds like it's been planned as well as they could have planned it up until now, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I believe that they will also support, because that's as educators, obviously we are still very much reeling from the news, right? Because wow, now that it's a mandate, it has to be done. It's no longer, we like AI and we're going to teach our kids because we think it's cool. No, it's now a mandate, and all schools have to somehow teach this. And I think I appreciate that, that's a challenge for most schools. I'm not saying that's going to be easy at all. I kind of understand why the government took that stance. But I also understand the pressure that that's putting on schools. And this is where, us as educators then come in, right?
Absolutely.
They're not going to prescribe to us like how you should do it. They will just outline what their expectation is, and it's now up to us to kind of come up with ways to meet that expectation. And this is where the communities, the podcast, us getting together and talking about it. This is when it really, really counts and it matters, and we need the education community absolutely needs. We need each other right now.
Yeah, we do. We have to keep sharing these stories, and I think this is really interesting to dive into because you're seeing that a lot of countries are going in a similar direction, right? Or if they haven't yet, then they probably will. And the same thing with the EU AI Act and the AI regulations, right? And what's kind of happening in different countries there. But I wonder then, could you speak to, thinking of people who, if you're a leader in a school and you're listening to this and you think this might be coming in my country, what has the UAE provided for schools specifically? Can you get into that? And you mentioned some expectations. Have they provided a list of expectations? Are they providing you with deadlines? What kind of resources are they really utilizing to support schools?
Okay, so we haven't seen any resources yet. When I say expectation, what I mean is, so what usually happens is if there is some sort of mandate or some sort of requirement from schools, it sort of then becomes part of, say, those standards that schools will be judged on or will be assessed on. So we know that in our next round of, say, school inspections, there'll be an expectation. That's what I meant. So we haven't seen any resources, and that's not to say they're not there. I just haven't come across any. So if anyone listening to this podcast actually knows if there are any, please just reach out because we need to know where they are. But we do know that. So what we have, the information we have, is obviously just an outline of, say, some of the subjects that or units or topics that could be taught. But it's nothing that is sort of deviating from what we would expect anyway. So it's preparing for that, I guess, and hopefully there will be resources and training.
Do you feel like they pulled a lot from what UNESCO put out and some of the OECD frameworks, that they've also created sort of a list and a framework then so far?
UNESCO definitely. UNESCO definitely. I think that the announcement, I'm not really sure if because their announcement was kind of before the OECD, so I'm not really sure how much of that information they had.
Yes. I did want to ask as well, though. I did want to ask as well about the context of being an international school in the UAE too. So do you feel like the UAE government is going to the ministry is going to put out enough to make it to do enough for JBS as an international school? Or do you feel like there are going to be some blind spots?
So no, it's. I think that the blind spots are not. It's not so much because you're an international school. I mean, I don't know if I don't know how much of the education landscape, UAE education landscape, but we are all private schools. So yes, you have your national local schools and the international schools like JBS. We are all operating with private school landscape. So so we are, whatever resources we have, these are coming from us, or if you're part of my school is part of a bigger school group, so the school group then is taking care of us. But actually, the blind spots, not so much because of the announcement from the UAE, but I think, well, in my opinion anyway, for me, it was looking at more those interdisciplinary subjects that needed to be in place in order to support such a program. And I'm not really sure how schools that didn't have that in place are going to manage to roll out such a program. It's going to be quite challenging, because because AI literacy is not a standalone. It's not something that just magically appears. It lands on so many other subjects: your computer science, your media literacy, your digital literacy, your ethics, your where else in your curriculum is this being taught? Because this needs to be in place in order to support this program for AI literacy. And I think that's where the challenge is going to be for a lot of us, including my school.
Absolutely. I mean, and it appears in language learning and individuals and societies when you get into the ethics bit, right? Like, it's going to be everywhere, and everyone has to pick up little pieces of it to support the true rollout and a true implementation. You write a lot of things on LinkedIn, which I love, and I like to follow and read the things that you write. Can you speak about, this is probably one of my favorite things, and yes, for the listeners, we will come back to the full implementation of what Sandra and her team has thought of. But before we do that, let's speak to your AI Tsunami article that you put out. Okay. And you really warned against just hype and hype-driven adoption. And I really would love to hear, what kind of just unpack that article a little bit for us. And it would be great to hear more about it and what you talked about in that article.
It's a tsunami, though, isn't it? And we see it on the horizon, and it's coming, and we're just like, oh my gosh, we're about to. It's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
But yes, so this actually is not a new idea at all.
Yeah.
It's an idea that I talked about at some conference some years ago, and really my passion has always been, and this is going back to just ed tech. So this was even before AI, right? And just saying, like when we're implementing any ed tech solution, because it's so easy to be taken by the shiny new toy, because they're shiny and exciting, and it's so easy to be taken by that. But a lot of schools, a lot of organizations then just find themselves in a lot of trouble, because you've taken on this new shiny toy, but with no real alignment. So you kind of fallen you've fallen for the shine, and really you're driven because now you have this tool, and you know what? We've spent money on this tool, and we're going to use the tool, but that's not what we want at all. So
and keep using the tool for 9 more months, because our subscription isn't up until 9 more months. Yes. And we spent money on it. And maybe some schools I see are drowning in 12 tools or 15 tools, or now, I mean, I made a little poster with 37 free AI tools for teachers. And so that happens too, right? That's happening too. And I think we're drowning in these tools. Absolutely.
And 100%. And I think, and again, for a lot of schools, and we know, we work in schools, we know the struggle for, just coming up with budgets for some of these things. And sometimes when we have these tools, we are so constrained, because we have the tool. We can't even look at anything else, because it's ridiculous. No one is ever going to approve, because, we have this tool, we're going to have to use this tool. So we want to move away from that and just say, do you know what? Let's take a step back. Let's have a look at how whatever tool we are using, including AI, is truly going to enable us as an organization. But what do we mean by enabling? What are our priorities? What are our values? where do we see ourselves adding value by using the particular tool. So it could be the newest. I mean, I saw some amazing things today. And I might just have been taken by the shine, but I saw some amazing tools that were shared in my session today, and I would love to just kind of get my hands on it and try it in school.
Right. Yeah,
But
experiment.
and that's natural, right? When you see something like that, you really you want to, but we all need to take a step back and say, hang on. How does this align to our priorities as a school? How does this align to our needs as a school, or where does it actually going to add value? And I think that's all that article was about. Yes, we are all drowning, and it's very easy to just go with the hype. We've just talked about the mandate just now. Some of us might be feeling the pressure because of the mandate, right?
Yeah.
And we have got to implement something now. But I suppose in that article, it was just a warning. It was just saying to everybody, no, do you know what? Let's just press the pause button and take a look at exactly how we implement it, why we're implementing it, how do we align this to our priorities, where are we adding value, and then we move on.
And doing vendor due diligence, like how is the school built, and how is it keeping our kids safe and our kids' data safe? And
oh my gosh,
so that's a whole nother. That's for the next podcast. We just wrote a whole course on that, AI and safeguarding, because no one's thinking about that, right? I mean, some people are, absolutely, of course, but that's something that we need to be talking about. I wanted to also ask about a real world example. So can you share? Okay, the AI tsunami. Can you share an example then of what would you do then, right? As a school leader who's an ed tech leader, what do you do then? How do you pick up a tool then and implement it and integrate it strategically and sustainably?
I wouldn't even start by the tool. I wouldn't even start by the tool. I would just go back to, so this is an emerging technology, and it's an emerging technology that we have to incorporate, right? So yeah, there is an element of being driven there, but because we want to incorporate it intentionally, we need to go back to the whole vision and a mission, values, the strategic plan for the school, and kind of take some time to actually see how this AI strategy sort of bolts on or is aligned to the overall school strategy. So once that is done, then your tool selection is then aligned to this need. So say, for instance, if your particular need was, say, I don't know, we want to look at the whole feedback loop in our school. How do we improve that with students? Okay, so that's maybe, we have other things that have fed into this. So into this priority, maybe it's an inspection a report or some sort of recommendation made, or wherever this is coming from. But whatever the case is, it is now a school priority. It's not just a tech priority. And we are saying, okay, how do we enable the school to meet the needs or to meet this priority? And then maybe when we're looking at those tool selections, then we're looking at that particular need. So I think you almost have to say, whatever tool we're picking up or whatever tool we're recommending, we're aligning it directly to a priority.
Yeah. Amazing. I think that's a really nice way to look at it. Okay, let's go into this next year, this upcoming school year. What is full implementation, or at least the draft of, or the beginnings of, hopefully going to look like in this upcoming year?
Exactly. Please, somebody help us. So this is the thing, right? And a lot, and honestly, a lot of us are in this boat, right? Where we're saying, okay, enough now, enough. We've heard it. We understand. We've attended the conferences. We've read the articles. We get it. We even have our strategic plan in place. What we need now are the tools to actually implement it, are the tools to actually make it work in situ. Tell us. I gave an example to a colleague today, and I said, when you talk about, say, ethics and governance to a lay person, what is that? I mean, what does that look like in school? I mean, honestly, right?
Yeah.
So it's
How do we break it
actually
down? Yeah.
exactly. It's actually now saying, do you know what? When we are talking about this, this is what it looks like, and this is how you can implement it. And we are now saying, do you know what? We want to see more workshops. We want to see more teach meets. We want to see more places where we're actually collaborating and sharing practical strategies, if not a toolkit. If there's a
Yeah.
toolkit out there,
Yeah.
a real toolkit, and we're saying, do you know what? If I am going to put together my AI policy, there's a template, right?
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
template is aligned with, I don't know, DFE, EU, UAE, whatever it is, but here it is, right? And schools
Yeah.
can then start making that their own. But some really practical. So we are calling out for a toolkit. We're calling out for more workshops. So less talk shop, but more workshops, so we can come back, take back to our school something that's practical that we can actually implement.
Yeah. And speaking to, I love getting practical about things. I really love speaking to the practical elements of what is it actually going to look like? Are there a team of teachers? Is it going to be this AI project team or the tech steering committee, or are there certain grades that are ready to adopt this? And you mentioned that you have some kind of core structure already laid out.
Yes.
So yeah, what can you speak to all of that? That would be really interesting to hear about.
Yeah, so what we have done is we've looked at, so we call them pillars. So as part of our strategic plan, we've looked at different pillars that will help us kind of develop this ecosystem, this AI ecosystem. So the pillars look at different aspects. So we have obviously the curriculum integration. So where we are looking at how AI is going to be integrated in the curriculum, how it's going to be integrated in the curriculum. So looking maybe at our unit plans, how teachers are going to use that. And then we have, obviously, we've got the assessment piece. So we're looking at, how obviously assessments are going to change by A already have. So we've got another focus. We've got a focus that's looking at AI. AI, well, not AI assessments, but assessments in the age of AI, how AI is impacting assessments and how we now need to look at how we assess. We have another pillar that's looking at ethics and governance, which I've just talked about. We've got a pillar that's looking at our infrastructure, which will include the tools that we use. And then we've got adoption, which will include the PDs. So what we've done is for each of those pillars, we do have the project team working on it, but they also work. So each pillar has like a domain, and each domain. So say, for instance, if you're looking at, say, curriculum integration, maybe for that domain, they're working with, say, the teaching and learning leads. So we'll get together with the teaching and learning leads, and together we'll work on that. If you're looking at the infrastructure, maybe you've got teaching and learning leads, but now with the AI, with the tech teams as well. So you're looking at that. So that's why I said we have a project team that then can borrow, or, as and when, if we're working on a particular pillar or a particular task, we can then, work with various other team members across the school.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And your goal is then, is it going to look like across grade levels? Is it going to, okay. So everyone's going to be teaching something new next year.
Everyone's going to be teaching something new. So like I said before, we started with our PLCs, and what the PLC groups did at the beginning was looking at AI for teachers, right? So we wanted our teachers comfortable with the tool. We wanted them experimenting with the tool. So they started doing that already. Now we are now, and this is something that I'm quite passionate about, and it's something that you alluded to earlier, where we are now looking at, student facing tools. And my thing with that is, okay, well, how do we select these?
That's going to be a big,
what because everybody's talking about
that.
Exactly. Right. So that's where we are. And what we want to try and do is we want to try and come up with a criteria for selecting tools that's obviously in line with, like we the DFE's report, it just came out this week. I've not finished reading it, but the bits that I have some quite interesting links there to other reports that talk about, expectations so it's not that explicit, but expectations for when you are selecting tools.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
the EU has as well. So looking at all that so that it informs how we select tools.
Mhm. Yeah.
What does this mean? We talk about the strategies we're using in AI. We're showcasing amazing things we're doing with the students, but nobody's actually talking about the tools that they're using
No.
and how they've selected these tools. And can we actually use them? Because the
Yeah.
first thing you hear is, oh, actually, the kids have to be over the age of 13. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay, good to
When they
know.
talk about it, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
And then when they
and
talk about
even if they're 14, what kind of biases exist in the platform that are
and
maybe
how
that we need to teach them about? What
yeah,
did you say?
and how have you checked that the bias? How do you know?
Yeah, exactly. We actually have a little resource that we made. It's called AI Vendor Due Diligence, and I'll put it in the show notes as well, because that might be helpful for some people. It's
That would
simply
definitely
it's a checklist to go through this kind of thing. It's a one-page resource. So I'll put that in there. It's a free resource that we give away to schools. No, I think this is going to be really interesting, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah.
It's going to be a crazy school year ahead. I think for schools, not just in the UAE, but I think schools globally, it's going to start to look different of what's happening in our classrooms. And I hope it does. I hope it does for kids, because they're already using it and seeing it in their lives. They just need some guidance, and they need some support in that.
I know, and it's something that we need to kind of get our act together, because the further they are ahead of us,
Yeah.
very difficult it's going to be to rein them back and say, oh, actually, that's not the ethical use of AI. Oh, no, that's not responsible. Oh, no, you can't do that. So if we're really going to guide students, I saw something today on LinkedIn that talked about the impact that direct instruction has. And the author, I'm so sorry, I can't remember who the author was, but the author was talking about how, research has kind of debunked the whole idea of, exploration when you are learning, that, direct instruction has more impact, and right now we can't allow our students to just go and explore and find out what AI does without actual direct,
Instruction.
guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was quite interesting. So we need to get our act together so we can try and not rein them back, as in restrict them, but maybe instruct them on how best to use, or how best to get the best they can out of the tool.
Yeah, and help them understand how to keep themselves safe and how to judge it, and be very cautious users instead of just immediate adopters, explorers, and
explore.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you so much for being on the episode today. I think the very last thing I wanted to mention, and to close everything, is to talk about us women in ed tech, in leadership, in AI. Is there anything that you would say to other women out there who maybe, like I had a few years ago, have imposter syndrome? Is there anything that you would say or mention about really empowering other women to start to lead in these types of roles, especially in education?
Imposter syndrome, don't we all have it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think do women have it more? I don't know.
We all have a little bit.
Maybe not. Yeah.
No, everyone will have a little bit of it. I think it's especially when you step into something different. If you step into something maybe bigger than you were used to, you do kind of feel. So I think it's important to acknowledge that that's quite normal and almost to be expected.
Yeah.
But when it comes to women in leadership, in general, there was an article I read a few years ago, where it was talking about, I think it's called taking a selfie or something like that. And basically, it challenges the female leader. It's asking the question of how many leaders you have created. So not so much looking at, encouraging women to step into leadership, because how do you step into leadership if the person who is in leadership is not giving you that helping hand to step into leadership? So the article was actually challenging the women that are already in leadership and saying, you know what, how many leaders have you created? And knowing what you know, because you've walked this journey, knowing what you know about the struggle, and knowing that leadership, especially for women, is never linear, right? Mm-hmm. It's always, you're going to turn right, left, go under, there's so much there. So if you have navigated all this successfully, because you're now a leader, how then have you supported other women? How then have you supported women that think they are not ready for leadership because, again, maybe they're feeling, imposter syndrome, or they're just not ready, or they're not cut up for it. So what are you as a leader doing to encourage women into leadership? So look behind you, or take a selfie, and see how many leaders you've created behind you.
That's a really, really nice way to look at it, is to look back, actually, instead of looking forward. And one of the advisors that we have at Ablana Learning, her name is Dr. Nikki Sweeney. I don't know if you follow her work. She founded AI Her Way, and she really, really, really encourages women to start getting involved in this AI conversation. And so I love the work that she's doing too. And I think that's a great, that's another extra extended read if you are a woman or a male.
Definitely.
So great to have you, Sandra. Thank you for everything that you've shared. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and I wish you all the best in your role at JBS.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's a pleasure.
Time. Yeah.
Definitely. Until next time, for sure.
Until next time.
You've just listened to the AI in IB Schools podcast, hosted by Ablana Learning. At Ablana Learning, we help your school stay ahead of rapid technological change, cutting through that AI clutter with ethical, sustainable guidance rooted in international school values. Founded by veteran IB educators, we've designed the world's first fully articulated K-12 continuum AI curriculum, ready to run as either a standalone program or threaded into existing subjects. And we offer access to practical professional development, delivered in person, virtually, or self-paced, that upskills every member of your staff. Ablana is here to ensure your school becomes AI-informed, AI-safe, and AI-empowered, enabling your students to think critically, act responsibly, and innovate with purpose. Let's talk about your school. Send us an email at info@ablanalearning.com. We'll see you next time.